Sometimes in Tamil cinema and even in cinema in general, art imitates life and art gets affected by life. Now, some movies, the vibe of the movie changes because of something that happened behind the scenes. Maybe the performances of one person or multiple people gets affected because of stuff that happens behind the scenes. Or maybe a scene is injected into a film because of something that happened to the star or to someone else, and they use that as inspiration. I wanted to highlight some very interesting stories about stuff that you might have not known about behind the scenes of very famous films. Now, the first film that I want to talk about is Dil. Now, Dil is one of the biggest blockbusters in Vikram's career, and the director of the film was Vikram's Loyola College buddy, Dharani. Now, you might not know Dharani by name, but you know him by his films. He also directed Dul, which also starred Vikram in the lead role and was one of the biggest blockbusters at the time. And he directed a very small movie by the name of Gilli, which ended up becoming one of the biggest blockbusters of all time as well. And he also directed Kuravi and also directed Osti. Now, Dharani was a college buddy of Vikram's, and he's seen an incident that happened to Vikram that he would use later on as part of the story of this film. Now, in college, Vikram got into a severe accident to the point where the doctor said he could not walk anymore and he had to amputate one of his legs. And if you've seen some promotional photos from the film Sami, you actually could still see the scars that Vikram has on that leg from that massive accident. So he was bedridden for 3 years during his college stint, and everyone told him he can't walk. He has to pretty much amputate his leg. He would have to, even if he was going to keep that leg, he would have to go on crutches and whatnot. And Vikram proved everyone wrong. Miraculously, to this day, has that leg working properly. Now, Dharani used that as inspiration towards the plot of Dil, where in a major portion of the film, Vikram's character is bedridden and he has to recover from an injury and he has to regain strength. So, one of the biggest pluses of this film and one of the biggest things that people remember is that the film is very motivational in showing a person go from a massive injury to recovering from it and showing that anyone can overcome the negative that might happen with an injury. And the O Nan Bane song kind of a meta way of Dharani telling his friend Vikram that, things will be all right and you will rise and conquer. And obviously the film became a huge hit. They both did another film together. Both had huge successes in their collab and shows that friendship really prevailed here. And yeah, it's a really cool story to know about. If you watch Dil the next time, you will know this is the reason why they put these scenes in the film. Now, this one's kind of a more funnier story, but it ended up working out at the end. So Kamal ended up working with Gautam Menon for Verteyadu Vilayadu. And obviously he came off of the huge success of Kaka Kaka. Kamal thought, okay, let me do this film with this person because he's a promising young director. And Gautam Menon is an outspoken, huge fan of Kamal. And in a lot of interviews, he said the reason why his character acts the way that he does in the film, Raghavan, who is the main character in the movie, is kind of nonchalant, doesn't really care about a lot of things. He's very straightforward, very strict, and kind of is just monotone in his delivery or whatever. The reason why is because apparently Kamal was very annoyed while doing the film because Gautam Menon would tell him, okay, you just need to walk in the scene, don't say a word, or just look into the camera and just look around. And Kamal was thinking why is this guy telling me to do all these things? And apparently Gautam Menon thought, and probably was proven right, that Kamal was getting annoyed with him. And ironically, this ended up becoming one of his best roles because it kind of fit into that kind of character, and it kind of fit into the purpose of that character, because the character is supposed to be this veteran cop that's no nonsense, doesn't really care about a lot of things, is just very strict and to the point, and he has to complete his mission and complete his detective work. And ironically, because of Kamal's annoyance towards Gautam Menon, it ended up helping out for the character in the final product. Now, if you're a fan of Ajit or if you're a fan of Tamil cinema in general, you probably recognize this in the mid-2000s. So there was a big point in Ajit's career where he was doing a lot of movies with long hair and he was very slimmed down in comparison to his previous roles. The reason why is because he was preparing for his role in Non-Cuttable. Now, Bala, being the director of that movie, was very meticulous in terms of his demands towards his stars. And the demand that he gave to Ajit is that even though he was going to do multiple films at the same time, he could not change his look. So Ajit had to keep the hair and he had to keep his body at a certain weight in order to do the role in Non-Cuttable. Now, Non-Cuttable ended up being delayed in terms of financial reasons and also because the movie was delayed because of production reasons. And sadly, that movie ended up getting dropped. Ajit had to leave that film, and it ended up restarting with Adia in the lead role. Now, obviously, that's a great movie overall, but that also explains why Ajit had this look, or almost similar look, in movies like Veralaru, Tirupati, and also Paramasivan. Kind of interesting because all three movies are different, but he had to keep that same image and same kind of like look overall in order to do a movie that he ended up not doing at all. In the film Anbe Sivam, there's a scene in the beginning of the movie where Madhavan's character mistakenly thinks that Kamal's character is a terrorist, and he's being interrogated by the airport officials. Now, this is based on a real-life incident that happened to Kamal while shooting the film Panchatandaram in Toronto at Pearson International Airport, and this is, I believe, around late 2001, early 2002. He was being interrogated because of his name. They thought that he was probably a terrorist suspect, and Kamal used this experience in Anbe Sivam to show like how people's, judgmental views could affect how they can view a regular person who is just going there to shoot a movie. And very interesting, because if you watch Anbe Sivam, you probably think like, why is that scene in the beginning of the film? This is the reason. This is one of the funnier and more cool tidbits in recent Tamil cinema history, but the character that Melanie Marie plays, who's right there, she's the love interest of Premji in the film. Her character's name is Jessica Alba in the movie. The reason why is because originally her character was supposed to be played by Jessica Alba, and she almost did the role. So Venkat Prabhu actually met with Jessica Alba. He gave her the script, and she really, really liked it, to the point where she agreed to do the movie, but asked for a salary that was twice as much as the whole entire budget of the movie. So I think the budget of the film was supposed to be 6 or 7 crores, and apparently Jessica Alba asked almost 15 or 16 crores. And sadly, Venkat Prabhu said that like the producer could not afford her, and they had to do the budget within the means that they were given. So yeah, they ended up naming the character after her. But yeah, again, in another parallel universe, we might have seen a movie where Jessica Alba was in a Tamil cinema movie. Shivaji the Boss and Dasavadaram were two of the biggest budgeted films in Tamil cinema history, and two of the biggest blockbusters in Tamil cinema history as well. But you might not know this, but there was a shadow ban between these two films. Now, Shivaji the Boss went into production first, and then subsequently it was Dasavadaram. When Shivaji the Boss went into production, they had everyone, signed up and ready to go. And then Dasavadaram went into production and signed Shreya, who is the main star in Shivaji alongside Rajinikanth, and also signed up A.R. Rahman to do the music for Dasavadaram. Now, apparently, there was a shadow ban between these two productions. So Shivaji's ban was that, like, whoever was working on Shivaji could not work on Dasavadaram. If they were major personnel in that production, they were not allowed to do both films. So they had to choose between one or two. So Shreya had to drop from Dasavadaram, and I think her character was supposed to be the Malika Sharwat character, so she had to drop out and just do Shivaji. And A.R. Rahman had to drop out of Dasavadaram and ended up doing Shivaji instead. And Himesh Rameshia did the music for Dasavadaram at the end. Ironically enough, the only person that got to do both films was M.S. Bhaskar. Now, when Shivaji was in production, M.S. Bhaskar wasn't a big star yet. He was kind of just a character actor that was kind of like more in the background. And once the film was done filming, the movie Mori came out, and Mori became this big blockbuster, and one of the most famous characters in that film was played by M.S. Bhaskar. And utilizing that fame, they had M.S. Bhaskar's character in Dasavadaram extended to becoming this big comedic character in the movies. So somehow, some way, he found a loophole to be in both movies. But yeah, there was, ironically, this weird shadow ban that happened between the two films. But now I feel like a lot of big budgeted films, they don't really care if like multiple people are in different productions. They just want the best talent. So it's interesting at the time that there was this kind of like interesting rivalry happening between these two big budget films. This is more so life imitating art rather than art imitating life. So Nanam Raudidan, Kaka Kaka, Maragadananayam, and also Amerkalam, 4 couples were born from these films. So Nanam Raudidan, this is the only film out of the 4 that actually had a director falling in love with the actor, and Nayanthara obviously ended up with Vignesh Sivan in this film. He dedicated a song towards her in this movie, and their relationship intensified after this movie. Kaka Kaka, obviously Surya and Jyotika. In Maragadananayam, even though the characters don't unite in the film, they unite in real life. And in Amerkalam, it's Ajit and Shalini. So it's kind of nice that we saw these couples being born from these movies.